Alexandre Dumas' The Count of Monte Cristo is not a comforting adventure about a heroic escape, nor is it a simple fantasy of cosmic justice. It is a terrifyingly precise deep dive into social murder. It is a brutal demonstration of what happens when a naive, low-born man attempts to climb the ladder of honest work, only to be systematically blindsided, stripped of his humanity, and buried alive by a coalition of mediocre peers and a corrupt legal system that views a poor man's life as a cheap coin to be spent for personal promotion. Too many modern readers treat this masterpiece as a satisfying popcorn revenge thriller. Today, we strip away that superficial action movie gloss. We will look at this text through an unflinching lens to see how an innocent sailor from the Marseille docks had to be entirely executed at a spiritual and social level, so that an omnipotent force of vengeance could be born from his corpse. Tragedy begins not with a crime, but with a blind belief in the rules of the game. The protagonist, Edmond Dantes, is a brilliant young sailor about to become a captain and marry the woman of his dreams. He has done absolutely nothing wrong, but he does not understand the predatory mechanics of the world. He is surrounded by three wolves: Danglars, an ambitious clerk envious of his talent; Fernand, a bitter rival craving his fiancée; and Villefort, a young, ruthless prosecutor who discovers that a letter Dantes carries contains a political secret that could destroy his own career. To protect his personal ambitions, Villefort signs a warrant that erases Dantes from the face of the earth. Without a trial, without a record, Dantes is thrown into the deepest dungeon of the Château d'If. For 14 years he is buried in total darkness, listening to the crushing silence of the Mediterranean waves. His youth rots, his love is stolen, and his faith in a just world is thoroughly starved to death. He enters the cell as a human being. He survives only as a screaming ghost trapped in a permanent quarantine of history. The turning point of Dantes' universe arrives not from heaven, but through a hole in his dungeon wall. It comes in the form of Abbé Faria, a brilliant political prisoner known as the Mad Priest. Let us deconstruct the true nature of this prison education without romantic sentimentality. Faria does not just teach Dantes languages, history, and science. He completely rewrites his brain. He gives Dantes the intellectual weaponry of the ruling class. He takes the raw, chaotic grief of a broken sailor and refines it into a cold, calculated analytical engine. Faria performs a logical autopsy on Dantes' past, tracing the invisible lines of betrayal back to his three enemies, showing him exactly how the machinery of society operates. And before his death, Faria delivers the ultimate cheat code of the real world: the secret location of the Monte Cristo treasure, a mountain of ancient gold hidden on a desolate island. When Faria dies, Dantes executes the ultimate prison break. He crawls inside his mentor's shroud, takes the place of a corpse, and allows himself to be hurled into the freezing sea. This is not just an escape. It is a literal baptism of death. Edmond Dantes dies in those ocean waters. When he surfaces and claims the staggering wealth of Monte Cristo, he doesn't just buy a luxurious life. He realizes the foundational law of the modern age. In a society ruled by hypocrisy, infinite capital is the equivalent of infinite divine power. He transforms his gold into a sovereign intelligence network, buys a title, and emerges as the Count of Monte Cristo. He is no longer a man. He is a walking central bank with a ledger of blood that needs to be balanced. When the Count of Monte Cristo enters Paris 14 years later, he does not come with a sword. He comes with a globalized financial monopoly. His enemies have won the game of life. Danglars is now the richest banker in France. Fernand is a decorated peer of the realm and a general. Villefort is the supreme crown prosecutor of Paris. They are protected by titles, armies, and laws. They are untouchable inside the fortress of bourgeois respectability. But Monte Cristo does not attack their bodies. He completely takes over their financial and psychological infrastructure. He buys their debts, manipulates their stock markets, and infiltrates their bedrooms. He plays the role of an eccentric, omniscient tycoon, flashing unlimited wealth to flatter their vanity. He opens an unlimited credit line of 6 million francs at Danglars' bank. The very men who destroyed an innocent sailor because of his low birth now bow their aristocratic heads to the dirt before his gold. They invite the executioner into their parlors, beg him to accept their hospitality, and compete for his favor. They think they are exploiting a wealthy eccentric, completely blind to the fact that every dinner invitation they accept from Monte Cristo is a formal signature on their own financial and social liquidation notices. The total liquidation arrives not through violent explosions, but through the patient, automated collapse of a domino line. Monte Cristo does not commit crimes. He merely creates a vacuum where his enemies' past sins can expand and devour them from within. With Fernand, the Count exposes his hidden treason in Greece, stripping him of his military honor, his peerage, and his family's respect in a single public session. Fernand runs home, looks at his ruined reputation, and puts a bullet through his own brain. With danglers, Monte Cristo manipulates the telegraph system to spread false financial news, forcing the banker into disastrous investments until his banking empire is completely hollowed out. Danglars is driven to flee Paris, ending up starved in an Italian cave, begging to buy a single piece of bread with 1,000,000 francs. Perfect literal inversion of Dante's 14 years of starvation. With Villefort, the execution is the most devastating. Monte Cristo introduces the dark art of poisoning into Villefort's own household, watching as the prosecutor's family systematically destroys one another for inheritances. With Villefort, the execution is the most devastating. Monte Cristo introduces the dark art of poisoning into Villefort's own household, watching as the prosecutor's family systematically destroys one another for inheritances. When Villefort's past crime of burying an illegitimate infant alive is brought into his own courtroom, the supreme guardian of the law collapses into a babbling, broken lunatic. When Villefort's past crime of burying an illegitimate infant alive is brought into his own courtroom, the supreme guardian of the law collapses into a babbling, broken lunatic. When Villefort's past crime of burying an illegitimate infant alive is brought into his own courtroom, the supreme guardian of the law collapses into a babbling, broken lunatic, clawing at the dirt in his ruined garden. The ordinary revenge stories usually stop when the floating red petals appear, but Monte Cristo looks at the ruins of these families and realizes a terrifying truth. In his pursuit of perfect justice, he has mutated into a monster. He has accidentally shattered the lives of innocent children and the woman he once loved, Mercedes, who is left widowed and destitute in the ruins of a collapsed aristocracy. Faced with a ledger of blood that has been completely balanced, and perhaps even overpaid, the man who called himself the Hand of God finally chooses to step down from his divine pedestal. After witnessing the dead body of Villefort's innocent young son, the Count feels a profound terror regarding the limits of absolute vengeance. He realizes he is not God. He is merely an instrument that was sharpened too fine in the dark. He stops the punishment, forgives the broken danglers, and gives his entire remaining empire, the unimaginable wealth of Monte Cristo, to the next generation of innocent youth. He takes Haydée, the only woman who truly understood the scars on his soul, and steps onto a modest boat, leaving behind the continent that betrayed him yet made him who he is. The Count of Monte Cristo, the Avenger, is dead, and the sailor whose name was erased for 14 years finally wins back the right to breathe in the quiet twilight of his life. He leaves the world with just 2 words: wait and hope. Alexandre Dumas, The Count of Monte Cristo, remains an absolute masterpiece because it does not just show how capital and intelligence can crush elite privilege. It shows the ultimate form of power, knowing when to walk away from vengeance and return to humanity. Many view this simply as a satisfying story of revenge, but its core code is a celebration of human dignity. Dantes was not broken by the darkness of his dungeon, nor was he corrupted by his limitless wealth. He proved a timeless truth: when the laws and systems of the world choose hypocrisy and oppression, the only way for an ordinary soul to survive with dignity is to become sharper than the darkness itself, and use that clarity to write your own return to the light.